What do you do with all these pretty fabric scraps? I used a small square template. It's a small 1-inch ruler, and it also has the added seam allowance, which allows you to take the smallest fabric scraps and even use them for pretty fuzzy cutting. Like this tiny little horse, just place the ruler on top and cut out your tiny squares. Once you cut out a whole bunch of squares, you don't just sew them together. Use lightweight fusible interfacing. I used Pellon 906F, and then you place your squares on top of the fusible interfacing. Place them nicely side by side. Don't worry, they don't need to be perfectly straight. Once you're done, you press them to your interfacing. And now we're going to sew these together. I like to use a 1/4-inch sewing machine foot. That just makes your life so much easier. Now fold over the first row of squares and stitch along the edge with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. Repeat for the rest of the little squares. One row after another. Keep on going till you're done with all of the rows. The 1/4-inch seam allowance foot aligns with the edge. This is what it should look like after you've sewn all the rows. Now it's time to open the seam allowance. You can do this either with a seam ripper. Just place the seam ripper inside and go through the fusible interfacing. Or you can do the same with a pair of scissors. Place the scissors inside the seam allowance and just cut through the interfacing. Once you're done, it's time to press the seams open. Either finger press them or use your iron. Now we're going to sew the other rows. Again, fold over the first row and stitch along the edge with a 1/4-inch seam allowance. And this is what it should look like once you're done. Now we need to cut open the other seam allowances. I find the easiest way is if you cut along the top edge of the seam allowance with a rotary cutter. This way you still have enough seam allowance and it's easy enough to do it all at once. Cut all of the seam allowances open and then press the seams open as well. Again, either finger press or use your iron. Et voila, this is it. You can now trim the excess fabric and you have beautiful squares made out of tiny 1-inch fabric squares. It would have been such a shame to throw out all these pretty little fabric scraps. And I think the pink one is my absolute favorite.